What happens when one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood, a man whose very name has become shorthand for high-octane thrill rides and polished media appearances, walks into a TV studio expecting the usual softball questions and leaves embroiled in one of the most talked-about live confrontations in morning show history? What happens when a morning program known for its feel-good segments about recipes and celebrity gossip becomes the stage for an ambush so brazen that it leaves viewers stunned, producers scrambling, and the guest himself questioning why he ever agreed to appear? This isn't a movie. This isn't some pre-planned viral stunt. This is what happened when Tom Cruise, one of the last true movie stars, sat down across from George Stephanopoulos expecting a conversation about his latest mission, Impossible film, and instead found himself in the middle of a televised interrogation that quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable, fascinating, and raw moments you'll ever see on live TV. And believe me, what you're about to hear isn't the neatly packaged PR soundbite you're used to. This was unfiltered, unplanned, and absolutely explosive. Before we go further, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Narrative Nest, because this is the kind of story that demands a deep dive, the kind the surface-level headlines won't give you. Now, let's take you inside the room where it all happened. The day began like any other at Good Morning America. The set glowed under its familiar bright lights. The staff moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, running through pre-show rituals they'd done 1,000 times. Producers in headsets double-checked their shot lists, segment coordinators ushered guests to their green rooms, and a few interns shuffled papers while trying to look more confident than they felt. But there was something different in the air that morning. Not everyone could pinpoint it, but those who had been in television long enough could feel it. A slight tension, a subtle current of nervous energy beneath the surface. Tom Cruise arrived at the studio early, as he always does. Whatever people might say about his quirks, no one denies his professionalism. He's been in this business for over 4 decades, and punctuality is one of his unspoken rules. As he walked through the backstage hallway, he greeted everyone with the same warmth and charisma he's known for. "Good morning," he said with that megawatt smile, shaking hands with crew members, thanking makeup artists, even sharing a quick laugh with a production assistant who nervously asked about the stunts in his latest film. To anyone watching, he was exactly what you'd expect. Polite, gracious, laser-focused on promoting a movie that hundreds of people worked tirelessly to bring to life. But not everyone backstage shared his enthusiasm. A few producers avoided making eye contact. His publicist noticed the way one segment coordinator whispered something to another and quickly looked away. To most guests, this would mean nothing. But Tom, after years of living under the microscope, picked up on it instantly. Something was off. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Instead, he quietly filed it away in that mental vault where actors keep their read of the room. In the control room, George Stephanopoulos sat reviewing his notes. To anyone passing by, he looked calm, collected, even. But behind that calm was intent. The questions on his cards weren't the typical, "Tell us about your movie," softballs Tom was expecting. This wasn't going to be a 10-minute segment about the adrenaline-pumping stunts or the thrill of breaking box office records. George had other plans. Plans that Tom's team either hadn't been briefed on or, worse, hadn't been warned about at all. The countdown to live air began. 30 seconds, a producer called out. Tom adjusted his earpiece, gave his collar a quick straightening, and settled into his chair across from George. They shook hands, the cameras catching just enough of the exchange to create the illusion of cordiality. But if you looked closely, really looked, George's handshake wasn't the warm welcome of a host greeting a guest. It was firmer, intentional, almost performative. Tom flashed another smile. He'd been doing this for decades. He knew how to play the part. But behind that smile, he was alert. 5, 4, 3. The segment began. George started off with the expected fluff. "We're here with Tom Cruise, whose new Mission Impossible film is breaking records worldwide. Tom, congratulations on another successful movie." Tom leaned forward, his tone practiced but genuine. "Thank you, George. It's been an incredible journey making this film, and I'm thrilled that audiences are responding so well to it. The viewers at home saw what they always see, the effortlessly charming Tom Cruise giving polished answers. But then came the moment that changed everything. George glanced down at his notes, then looked up, his tone suddenly sharpening. Before we talk about the film, I think our viewers deserve to know about some concerning reports regarding your behavior on set. There have been allegations of you creating a hostile work environment, screaming at crew members, and generally being difficult to work with. How do you respond to these claims? It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Tom's trademark smile faltered, if only for a second. His eyes narrowed slightly. He blinked, once, as if recalibrating. This wasn't what he'd been briefed for. This wasn't on the pre-interview sheet. But he knew better than to let the audience see him sweat. "George," he began, his voice calm, "I'm not sure what reports you're referring to. I work very closely with my crews, and I think if you ask anyone who's worked with me, they'll tell you I'm passionate about filmmaking and committed to creating the best possible experience for everyone involved." It was a textbook deflection, polite, firm, and designed to steer the conversation back to neutral ground. But George didn't take the bait. "That's not what we're hearing, Tom," he said, leaning in with a pointedness that bordered on predatory. "We have sources who say you've become increasingly controlling, that you demand multiple takes for scenes that don't require them, that you've reduced crew members to tears with your perfectionist demands. Is this the real Tom Cruise the public doesn't see?" The studio audience, who'd been expecting light banter about stunts and behind-the-scenes stories, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't morning show fare. This was an ambush. Tom's jaw tightened. He wasn't going to be baited into an outburst. "George, I think there's been some misunderstanding here," he said evenly. "Yes, I'm passionate about my work. Yes, I demand excellence from myself and my productions. But I've never created a hostile work environment. In fact, I work with many of the same crew members film after film because we've built relationships based on mutual respect." George smirked slightly, sensing the tension. "Mutual respect," he repeated with a trace of mockery. "Tom, we have documented incidents where you've allegedly berated assistant directors, insisted on dangerous stunts against the advice of safety coordinators, even put productions at risk because of your ego. Don't you think the public has a right to know about this pattern of behavior?" In the control room, producers exchanged wide-eyed glances. This wasn't in the segment outline. Tom's publicist, standing just off camera, clenched her fists, her face flushing with anger. Tom sat up straighter, his tone hardening. "George, I'm going to stop you right there. I don't know what your agenda is this morning, but these allegations you're making are completely unfounded. I've worked in this industry for over 4 decades, and my reputation speaks for itself. I work with the best crews in the business, and they choose to work with me again and again because we create great films together." But George wasn't backing down. He smelled blood. "Your reputation, Tom, is exactly what we need to talk about," he said, his voice rising slightly. "Because your reputation isn't just about making films anymore, is it? It's also about your involvement with certain organizations, your public outbursts, your personal relationships that have ended in very public ways. Don't you think all of this affects how people see you as a person, not just as an actor?" The studio gasped softly. George had crossed into personal territory. Tom's publicist took a step forward, ready to call for a commercial break. The audience members exchanged looks, some wide-eyed, some shaking their heads. Tom inhaled deeply, his media training taking over. "George, I came here this morning to talk about a film that hundreds of people worked incredibly hard to create. A film that's entertaining audiences around the world. I'm not sure why you want to turn this into some kind of personal attack, but I think we should focus on why I'm actually here." But George interrupted. "And that's exactly the point, Tom," he said, cutting him off mid-sentence. You want to control the narrative. You want to only talk about what you want to talk about. But journalism means asking the hard questions people want answers to. And people want to know who Tom Cruise really is behind all the movie star charm. The room was silent except for the low hum of cameras. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a showdown. And in that moment, something changed in Tom. His smile disappeared completely. His posture shifted. He wasn't here to charm anymore. He wasn't here to sell tickets. He was here to defend himself. The room was silent except for the low hum of the cameras. The energy that had once been light and promotional now felt like a coiled spring, ready to snap. Tom Cruise sat forward in his chair, his easy smile long gone, his posture no longer that of a charming guest eager to sell his movie but of a man who had realized he'd been led into a trap, and was now planning his escape. Across from him, George Stephanopoulos leaned back slightly, sensing the power shift but unwilling to acknowledge it. He had spent years refining his ability to control interviews, to turn moments like this into career-defining TV. But what he didn't fully grasp, at least not yet, was that Tom wasn't some green celebrity desperate for exposure. Tom Cruise was a media veteran who had spent decades navigating interviews with far sharper knives than this one. And he wasn't going to let George carve him up on live television. "George," Tom said, his voice cool and deliberate, "let me make something very clear. What you're doing here isn't a conversation. It isn't even an interview. This is an ambush. You've come in here with your mind made up about who I am and what story you want to tell, and you're using your platform to force me to play along." The audience stirred, the words ambush hanging in the air like a thundercloud. Some of them nodded. They could see it too now. This wasn't the warm, sanitized Good Morning America segment they'd come for. This was something else entirely. George, however, wasn't backing down. He leaned forward again, mimicking the body language of a man in control. "Tom, that's not fair. My job, our job, is to ask the questions the public wants answers to. And the public wants to know the real Tom Cruise. They want to know whether the man they see on screen matches the man behind the scenes. You say this is an ambush, but these are questions anyone in your position should be able to answer." Tom tilted his head, studying George. "Questions, George? Questions come with specifics. They come with facts. What you've done is rattle off a list of vague accusations and try to pass them off as journalism. Sources say, reports suggest. Do you even hear yourself? You're talking about my reputation like it's some rumor mill you read about on the internet. Meanwhile, you haven't named one source, cited one piece of evidence, or asked one legitimate question about the actual reason I came here today, which is to talk about a film that hundreds of people worked their hearts out to create." George smirked, though his face had begun to flush. He was losing the control he prided himself on. "Tom, you're deflecting," he said sharply. "You're leaning on your movie as a shield to avoid talking about yourself. You can't separate who you are from the work you do." Tom chuckled, a short, disbelieving sound. "Deflecting? George, I've been in this industry for over 40 years. I've never been arrested. I've never been sued for workplace misconduct. I've never had the kind of scandals that have taken other careers down. I show up prepared. I do my job. I do my own stunts because I want to give audiences something real. I work with crews who come back film after film because we respect each other. So tell me, what exactly am I being held accountable for? For caring about my work? For giving everything I have to the people who watch my movies? Or is it for having personal beliefs that you, and let's be honest, that's what this is about, don't agree with?" The last line hit George like a punch. "Tom, I'm not attacking your beliefs," he said quickly, his words coming out a little too fast, a little too defensive. "I'm simply asking how they might influence your behavior in the workplace. Surely you can understand why that's a relevant question." Tom leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Relevant? No, George. It's not relevant. It's prejudice. You're trying to draw some invisible line between my faith and my professionalism, and you're doing it on national television, knowing exactly how that will be spun after this interview ends. That isn't a question. That's an accusation. And I won't sit here and let you disguise it as journalism. The crew members, seasoned professionals who had seen their share of live TV chaos, stood frozen. No one was whispering into headsets. No one was shuffling papers. Even the control room had gone quiet. This wasn't just an interview gone off script. This was a car crash in slow motion, and everyone knew it. George tried to regain the upper hand. Tom, with all due respect, if you can't handle scrutiny, maybe live interviews aren't the place for you. My job is to press for answers. The public wants transparency. And walking out because you don't like the questions doesn't exactly give them that. Tom smiled, but it wasn't the dazzling heartthrob smile audiences knew. It was thin, calculated. Transparency? George, let me tell you what transparency actually looks like. It's me, sitting here, in front of millions of viewers, answering questions in real time about my work and my life. What you're doing is the opposite. You're hiding behind anonymous sources, innuendo, and sensationalism. You want a headline, not a conversation. And I don't play that game. Then Tom did something George didn't expect. He looked away from him and directly into the camera. It wasn't subtle. He wasn't talking to George anymore. He was talking to the millions of people watching at home. I want everyone watching this to see this for what it is. I came here to promote a film that hundreds of people worked tirelessly to bring to life. Instead, I've been ambushed with baseless allegations, personal attacks, and outright discrimination. This isn't accountability. This isn't transparency. This is character assassination. And it's wrong. The audience clapped. It started small, hesitant, but grew louder. Applause on live morning television wasn't supposed to happen here, not in the middle of a tense interview. But the crowd couldn't help themselves. They were watching a man stand up for himself in real time, and for many, it was thrilling. George's composure cracked. Tom, you're being dramatic, he said, his voice tightening. These are basic questions, the kind any public figure should expect to answer. Tom's response was surgical. Basic questions? No, George. A basic question is, how did you prepare for your latest role? A basic question is, what was it like performing that stunt? What you've done is take rumors and innuendo, package them as journalism, and expect me to validate them by dignifying them with a response. That isn't basic. That's manipulative. And then Tom did what no one, not George, not the producers, not the millions watching, expected. He stood up. George, he said, removing his microphone with calm precision. This stopped being an interview 20 minutes ago. This became an ambush. And I don't participate in ambushes. I came here as a professional to discuss my work. I'm leaving as a professional who refuses to play along with unprofessional tactics. George panicked. Tom, you can't just walk out. This is live television. Tom paused, turning back toward him. George, I'm not walking out on your viewers. I'm walking out on you. There's a difference. The studio erupted, some in stunned silence, others in applause. Tom handed his microphone to a crew member and walked off the set, leaving George staring at the cameras, alone, his mouth half open, his carefully crafted segment in ruins. The director in the control room barked, "Cut to commercial now." The screen abruptly switched to a bright, cheery ad for cereal. But it was too late. The moment had already escaped their control. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. #Tom vs. George trended worldwide. Fans dissected every second of the exchange, editing together highlight reels of Tom's sharpest lines. Some declared him a hero for standing up to what they called media bullying. Others accused him of overreacting. But everyone was talking. By noon, ABC released a statement. At Good Morning America, we aim to conduct interviews that are informative and respectful. We regret that Mr. Cruz felt otherwise. It was the kind of corporate non-apology meant to calm the storm. It didn't work. That night, entertainment pundits tore into the interview. One late-night host joked, "You know you messed up when Tom Cruise, a guy who hangs off airplanes for fun, decides you're too dangerous to deal with." Another called it the single most uncomfortable morning show moment of the decade. Hollywood insiders rallied behind Tom. Christopher McQuarrie, his longtime collaborator, tweeted, "I've worked with Tom on multiple films. One of the most committed, collaborative, respectful professionals I've ever met." End of story. Crew members from his sets shared their own experiences online, many refuting the hostile work environment narrative George had pushed. Even fans who weren't particularly fond of Tom found themselves siding with him. "You don't have to like the guy to see what happened there," one viral tweet read. That wasn't journalism. That was a hit job. Meanwhile, George faced his own backlash. Former colleagues questioned his judgment. Media critics accused him of blurring the line between accountability and ambush. For a man who had built his reputation on being calm and fair, the segment was a rare and very public miscalculation. And Tom? He did what he's always done. He moved forward. His team pivoted the narrative with precision, securing a sit-down with a major magazine to reframe the conversation. The feature focused on his commitment to filmmaking, his loyalty to his crews, and his refusal to let sensationalism overshadow art. The Mission Impossible film, meanwhile, saw a noticeable bump in box office numbers that weekend. In the end, what was supposed to be a routine morning show interview became something bigger. A referendum on media ethics, celebrity accountability, and the line between journalism and spectacle. Tom hadn't just walked off a set. He'd taken a stand. And maybe that's why this moment resonated so deeply. It wasn't just about Tom Cruise. It was about power. Who wields it, who abuses it, and who dares to challenge it when the whole world is watching. So what do you think? Was Tom right to walk off? Or should he have stayed and fought it out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the moments that reshape Hollywood live TV and the public figures we thought we knew, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us here at Narrative Nest.